Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. The LA Times, which has a great comedy section, by the way, they caught up with Danny DeVito and Charlie Day. They're out promoting season 17 of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Danny DeVito apologized for sounding like he had just come out of the salt mines. He said, "I did a lot of yelling this week." Danny talked about joining the show and said, "I knew lots about the show already. I was going in because I was friends with the president of the network at the time. John Landgraf sent me the first 8 shows, and I watched it with my family." He was saying he was talking about these really talented guys that he was working with, and John was building a network over there. I can't remember exactly where we met, but when we met, it was weird. It was the first thing that threw me a little bit. Do you remember where it was? Charlie said, "Yeah, we had a lunch. You, me, Rob, and Glenn on Beverly Boulevard. We didn't have an office. We were writing the second season. You agreed to the show. And you came in like your character from Get Shorty. You started ordering for all of us, and you told us some crazy story about your father having a box full of teeth and watches, and we were just taking notes. I think we pitched a couple different character names. I think you shot down a few of them, but you liked Frank." Charlie Day said, "Danny, I know that I went and spent maybe a whole week rewatching almost everything you'd ever done. I watched every episode of Taxi. I watched almost every single movie I could find, just studying a fighter you're going up against, and it was Get Shorty that really kind of locked in for me. A lot of people would have you do that Louis De Palma thing over and over again. You're so great at that. But there was something so idiosyncratic about the Get Shorty character and unpredictable that we were like, oh, if we could tap into that. I think it took us a couple seasons to do it, and then it felt like kismet that you sort of came in a meeting like that guy." DeVito talked about Frank and Charlie's relationship and said, "I like the idea of the scheming and everything that everybody else does, and they do it in a normal way. They want to make money. They want to get ahead. They want to be famous. They want the bar to succeed. They want this, that. But whenever Charlie does something, it titillates Frank." The Times of London spoke with Taylor Tomlinson. Now, something's driving me nuts here. First of all, I really like Taylor Tomlinson, but I just think this copywriting is so lazy. The Taylor Swift of stand-up talks about oversharing it. Why is she the Taylor Swift of stand-up? Because her name is Taylor? Because they're both blonde? Taylor Tomlinson looks more like Taylor Swift than I do by a lot. But is she the Taylor Swift of stand-up? Like, what does that even mean? They're both named Taylor. Okay. Joe Coy has never made a mean, horrible joke about Taylor Tomlinson, as far as I know. Taylor Tomlinson has never iced Joe Coy's career by giving him a dirty stare instead of just laughing at the joke and going, ha ha. Anyway, I digress. The Taylor Swift of comedy said, "I've been a full-time comedian for 10 years, and it's been nonstop. Before that, I was working 2 jobs and in college. I think after this tour, I'm going to take some real time off because I've been burning the candle at both ends for a long time. My career is everything I've ever wanted. There are certain aspects of my personal life that could certainly use some time and attention." Taylor grew up in a religious family. She began to question her faith at age 8 after her mother died from cancer and her father, who she no longer speaks to, remarried 10 months later. Tomlinson said, "I've had to work through a lot of my guilt and shame around sex and leaving the church. When there's a significant part of you that's being repressed because you were raised a certain way by certain people, I don't think it's possible to talk about that without a lot of anger and resentment, or at least it wasn't for me. Coming out as bisexual was the final piece. Look, I'm not an atheist. I'm not ruling anything out or judging anybody's choices. As long as you're not using religion to scare, manipulate, and control people, so it's just been many years of sorting through all that. Sometimes it's funny to make jokes about something you're really angry about, but it also could be detrimental if you try to talk about something too soon. Some of the jokes I've done about my mom dying, I tried when I was 20, and I hadn't been in too much therapy, and I think you can tell when someone's not doing well. It's similar to going on stage and knocking over the mic. It just makes people nervous if they feel like you don't have full control over yourself. There are jokes I wrote for this tour that I ended up cutting because I was like, I don't think I'm ready to talk about that yet. It would feel icky and like I overshared because I was talking about things that aren't resolved for me emotionally and are still very much affecting me in a complicated, negative way." Macpacker Andy Samberg says that Liam Neeson's upcoming Naked Gun reboot is good. That's stunning. I'll trust Andy Samberg. Now, let's all be fair. The Naked Gun is directed by Akiva Schaffer, who's the frequent collaborator with Andy Samberg, both from The Lonely Island and the wonderfully terrific, what is the Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire thing? What's that called? Oh my God, I love that thing. So either he's singing out for his friend or, Akiva Schaffer's got a pretty good track record. When I saw the trailer, when I saw the original idea, I was like, yeah. But Andy Samberg says The Naked Gun is pure joy, saying that Schaffer crushed it. Samberg says everyone who's seen the film loves it, and the film is all jokes wall to wall. Everyone I've seen it with walked out saying the same thing, which is like, I didn't realize how much I missed that feeling of a pure silly comedy that's all jokes wall to wall in a theater. Me and Akiva are always involved in each other's stuff, and I think he just crushed it. Liam is so funny at it. He's so good. Pam Anderson is so good at it, too. I'm really excited for them. I hope everybody goes and sees it because it's super funny. Album? Hopefully. The Naked Gun is out August 1st. Caught this one in Vice. I didn't write this article. I'm just telling you about it. The headline in Vice is, "These guys watch Adam Sandler's Click, the most demoralizing film ever made, every single week." I'm telling you, I didn't write this. Vice wrote, "Ever have the misfortune of seeing Adam Sandler's Click? I put it on to ease a hangover sometime in 2008, expecting a brain-numbing, heartwarming romp, abiding by the same two-word arc that all Adam Sandler films abided by at that point. Idiot prospers, in case you're wondering. It goes a little something like this. Adam Sandler's character finds a magic TV remote in a warehouse that can fast-forward time itself. He rejoices because he can now skip all the boring parts of his life, arguments, being ill, eating dinner with his family, and go straight to the good stuff, like promotions and pay hikes. But then, the magic TV remote learns Sandler's preferences, and it goes rogue, choosing for itself which parts of his life to fast-forward. Soon, Adam Sandler is hurtling towards the grave, powerless to stop the remote. One minute his kids are toddlers, the next they have gray hair, his wife marries their swimming coach, his dogs keep dying until one attacks him when he's a pensioner, and the doctors find out he has cancer. This year, I came across the Twitter account Click Thinks, ran by two anonymous Australians who've been watching the Adam Sandler movie Click every week since 2020 and will continue to do so for the rest of linear time. One of the anonymous fans said, "We started an online movie night during the pandemic. We didn't think too hard about our first pick. We just landed on Click. Then the next week came around. Instead of something new, we just watched Click again. 5 years on, we're still watching Click every week as if it's the only thing holding reality together. It's like a dare that nobody backed out of. I like that it feels like a play with a clear two-act structure. For the first half, it's the kind of humor that Sandler fans would expect, but then as the film transitions into its second act, pulls the rug out from under you. Suddenly, it's no longer about the comedic possibilities of a TV remote, but about the devastating consequences of prioritizing the wrong things in life." This guy has over 150 physical versions of Click. He says his favorite is the Japanese version, which translates to "If You Could Choose Yesterday." He's got a Korean VHS tape. He's working on a rare Russian VHS copy. The Click fan said, "The film encourages us to reframe how we see our daily lives, not as filler between big events, but as the core of our human experience." Today is Comedy Auction. Comedy Auction is part stand-up show, part fever dream yard sale. Audience members bring weird, wonderful, or cursed items from home. Two comedians auction them off. Greg Berman is your host. Each item comes with a story. Each bid comes with a punchline. All proceeds go to a local nonprofit. If you're in Portland, Oregon, it's at Kickstand Comedy today. Check that one out. That sounds fun. Over in the UK, Channel 4 is getting all involved with YouTube. Now they've started something called a comedy thing. So 2 points. A, I was going to report on this anyway. And then B, when I saw they called it a comedy thing, I was like, hey, you know, I've been hosting something called the Weekly Comedy Thing for over a decade now. New episode out today on the Live One app. The app is free. The show is free. What is the Weekly Comedy Thing? The Weekly Comedy Thing is like this, except I can actually play the bits, you know, royalties and stuff, rules. I can't just be like, and here's a 6-minute clip from George Carlin. Podcasting doesn't work that way. But on the Live One app, I can do that. It's called the Weekly Comedy Thing. New episodes every Sunday, and a new one out today. Anyway, the really differently titled Comedy Thing by Channel 4 will publish weekly long-form programming for YouTube, plus content on TikTok and Instagram. It launches with a cast of 7 up-and-coming comics who've emerged from YouTube, including Vittorio Angelone, Finlay Christie, Olga Koch, Emmy Oladipo, Mickey Overman, Mike Rice, and Dan Tiernan. Channel 4's philosophy is that YouTube is not the enemy, but is a distribution platform. And that is your comedy news for today. If you'd like the program without commercials or other interruptions, $5 a month. Go to calaroga.com/plus. If you're on Apple Podcasts, click the banner that says uninterrupted listening. Oh, out today, a new podcast, Crown and Controversy. That is a spinoff of the Palace Intrigue podcast. So Crown and Controversy, the elevator pitch is, what if the TV show The Crown kept going? So we picked up right where they left off. So this season of Crown and Controversy is the wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton. So check that out. That's out today. Also out today, another series from us, Alligator Alcatraz. So you can check those two out. I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Daily Comedy News. And now stick around for this interview.
Our sister, I'm going to bring forward yours and give it to you now. And he said, oh, wow, that's great. Thank you. That's so generous of you, Carl. That's great. But his wife, my sister-in-law, went ballistic. She said, this is too much money. This is wrong. I don't want anything to do with it, and stormed out of the room. And I thought, well, that's not what I expected. Oh my God. So I realized from that this was not an easy thing to do. So I learned a lesson from that, and I knew that I had to do this authentically. I had to do it right. Otherwise, it was not going to work. So that happened. And then the third thing that happened was that I was looking at my financial statements, and I had more money there than I was really using. It was sitting there. I mean, it was growing, making profits and so forth, but it wasn't being used. I wasn't using it for me. I wasn't using it for things that I really cared about, not for my people. So I thought, well, if I have all this money now, why should I wait until I die? Why don't I bring it forward? And then, it was a long process for me to come around to that, but that's what finally started this. And I said, well, I'll do it now.
Let's back up just a bit. Tell us a little bit about your new book. What is The Happiness Experiment?
Well, this is a recording of the real events with real people who I decided that I would bring forward the inheritance, the money I had for them in my will, and made it a prequest. So it was a chunk of money that they were going to get while they were still young enough to enjoy it, and I was still alive to see it happening. So I saw what they were doing. So when I sat down with them, I talked about money and happiness and how one can be connected. I said, look, I'm going to bring this forward and give it to you. But what I want from you is a plan so that you use this money. So it's really a big benefit for you. I don't want this to overwhelm you. And they said, what kind of plan? I said, I want a happiness plan. And they said, a happiness plan? What's that? So nobody seems to have a happiness plan. But it's one of the most important plans you can get. And it doesn't have to be very complex. What is it that makes you happy? What values do you want to pursue? What goals and dreams do you have? And you can pursue them. And so I got them to write a happiness plan. And then when I saw the plan, I gave them all the money all at one time. And so then they took it, and I watched them with their plan. I saw all their plans, what they did, and how they became happier. And so, that had to be written about. So, because I wanted other people to see what they did so that they too could do the same thing.
Which prequest is the most unique one you've come across?
Well, it was a very, very painful and sad story because two dear friends of mine had a beloved daughter, and she was hit head on by a drunk driver and killed. She happened to be 8 months pregnant at the time, so that killed the granddaughter too, and also their daughter. They were totally, totally wiped out, devastated, and they died emotionally. They had decided that they could never be happy again, that it would be wrong to be happy. They didn't deserve to be happy because their darling daughter had been killed. Tremendously painful, awful, awful story. So they were grieving 6 years later. And I met with them, and I told them how much they had added to my life and how much I was so grateful to them and that I wanted to express the gratitude. And I put them in my will, and they could accept that. And I said, but I want you to have it now. And they said, oh, no, we can't accept it. They turned it down. Well, we worked. I said, look, I'm leaving it open. So several months later, I think his wife persuaded him to do it, actually, so they said, okay, we'll do it because if we're going to wait until you die, why not do it now? And they did it. And it wasn't the money, interestingly enough. They said it was the coaching that made the big difference. That changed their mindset from being so negative. We'll never be happy again. We don't deserve to be happy. And the coach turned their thinking, their mindset around and said, look, you can be happy again. And they started to get the mindset of happy people. And now you cannot believe what these people, they're traveling all over the world. They're in Tahiti right now. They climbed Kilimanjaro. These people are loving life. And it was a major change. That is one of the most heartfelt, wonderful results of the and in a sense, she said, the wife said, this prequest saved my life because we were no longer living. We were dead. And this brought us back to life.
Yeah, I mean, dealing with grief, and many of us I have, when you're in those depths, it can be really difficult to find your way out of it. And, often it looks like there isn't a way out of it. And, sometimes you want a map, right? And it looks like this concept could be a good map for you if you're that. It sounds like it was for these folks. I always like to end interviews by asking, is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have?
how can my listeners benefit from this book? What should they do? What would be good for them? And so I'll answer that question. First off, think about happiness. Think about being happiness. You deserve to be happy, and you can be happy, but you have to make it as a choice. I'm going to increase my happiness. Just that, if you make that realistically, I want to, and I'm going to increase my happiness, that choice, and then talk to people about it. Talk to a husband or wife or a girlfriend or a friend, a therapist or coach. Talk to somebody about it and say, look, I made the decision that I want to be happier, and I'd like you to help me create a happiness plan, and then work on it. And it's not that hard, but it is challenging, but it's a wonderful exercise. And if they do it, I guarantee they will increase their happiness. I guarantee it.
Carl Barney is the author, and the book is called The Happiness Experiment, A Revolutionary Way to Increase Happiness. Carl, where can people find the book?
Wherever books are sold, and it's now available for pre-order from Amazon, and they can go to thehappinessexperiment.com, and they can pre-order it there, and I hope they will.
Carl, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. It's been fun.